Hey, what's up you guys? It's Ariana. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I do DIY and thrifting type of videos, so if you're interested, be sure to subscribe to see more videos from me. I've been seeing these like Peter Pan collars all around Instagram, Pinterest. I've particularly been seeing the Ganni ones, and Zara has some blouses also that have those big kind of ruffly Peter Pan collars, and I think it's kind of like an extension of like the 70s collar trend, but I got inspired to make one for myself, so that's what we're doing today. And I'm going to be actually making it from a white button-up just from the thrift store because I feel like it's so easy to find those. And I was actually kind of excited because I found this one that already has all these ruffles down the front, and I thought, hey, I could totally repurpose those ruffles and use it for like the edge of the collar. So we're gonna try to do that, and I'm gonna do just like a no-sew version just to be like easy. I'm just gonna use some liquid stitch. Of course you can totally sew it if you want to, and if you can't find a button-up shirt that's got ruffles already, my tip would be get just like a plain one, and then if you go to like Joann's or Hobby Lobby or somewhere that sells like trim, you can probably just find like a ruffled trim and then just get that to make it pretty simple. Of course you can also just ruffle some of this fabric as well, but that's just like another little cheap way for you guys to do that really easily. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started with this DIY. Alright, so here is that lovely blouse that we thrifted, and then like I said, I'm just going to be using liquid stitch for this project, and then we're going to do like the trace an item of clothing that you own type of method. And at first I chose this like small trench coat, but I realized later that that was not a good idea. But just so you can come along with me on this journey, you can see where I messed up and what I'm fixing, because the thought process was, well, just take a collar that already exists and trace it, and there you have it. But it doesn't really work that way, and you'll see why here in just a moment. Okay, so I tried to lay this onto my neck like as a collar would go. You know what I realized though? So a jacket collar actually, like because of the stand, actually sits up higher on the back of the neck. What I realized is that's not what I want. What we need for this is to like lay flat right up against your body here. So what I actually need to do is trace out from a crew neck like the shape of the neck hole. Right, so let's try this again. I took off the sweater I was wearing just because it was easy and it was a crew neck fit. So, and yes, I did film this entire part wearing just a sports bra, in case you were wondering, which nobody was wondering. So basically the gist is you are going to trace out the neck and shoulder seam of the back as well as the front. If you have like bodice pattern pieces, that would be a perfect thing to use for this. All you would have to do is just trace the neck and shoulders of those. I'm just doing half the pattern here because you can always place it on fold to double it up. I'm also leaving the body edge, the edge of the body of the pattern. what do we call that? Not the shoulder, but not the neck, but the other part. The rest of it. I'm leaving the rest of it just free because that's where we're gonna shape the collar shape. Shape the collar shape. Wow, we're doing great on this voiceover. Just awesome. But that is where we are going to shape the actual collar. So I'm just leaving it for now, and then I'll, you know, and then I'll shape it. So you should end up with two pieces like this where the shoulders meet and the front has a lower neckline than the back does. Okay, so I went ahead and taped those two pieces together, and now we've got a piece that lines up with the collar edge right there. So we're gonna shape this how we want it. What I'll do is probably round it out here, and then I don't know how thick I want to make it. What is that, maybe like 2.5 inches? 2 inches? So I actually had a dress form that I thought would be a little bit easier to draw out the shape that I want for the collar, but you definitely don't need to have one. You can just draw it on yourself. So I ended up doing this slightly curved triangle shape for the front, and then just connected it and did a curve in the back. And then from there, really just play around and finesse this shape to your liking. You know, hold it up against yourself, make it larger, however you need to fix it so that it's the shape that you like the best. And you can do that by tracing it onto a new sheet of paper. And whenever you get close, I suggest actually cutting this out on some test fabric. This is just an old stained t-shirt that was just sitting in my scrap pile. So I just placed this collar on the fold where the center back is. traced and cut it out, and then when I laid it on myself, I actually really liked the outcome. I was happy with the shape and the size of it, especially because I was going to be adding that little ruffle edge around the outside. It was going to make it larger. But of course, at that point, if you need to make any changes, you can definitely make some more changes to the pattern before you actually cut it out of the main fabric. Okay, so on my shirt, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to just like place it on the fold as easy as I did with the t-shirt, because I happened to pick a shirt that has stripes, first of all. And then there's quite a bit of seaming going on this button up because it is more of like a fitted style. So it may be easier if you get a larger or a men's button up shirt to do this with. That way you don't really have to maneuver and finagle around with this pattern piece to make it fit and make it work. If you have stripes or any kind of pattern, I would just plan around the pattern and, you know, line that up as best you can. And you will actually need a top and a bottom, I guess. So 2 full collars. The one for underneath, I didn't care too much about the seams since it was going to be hidden anyway. While I was cutting, I did also cut off the very small little hem that was on this shirt. I cut right up against that folded edge because I wanted to use this as the ties, because literally all the sewing is done for you. It's just ready to go. And then when you cut them out, be sure to leave a little bit of seam allowance. I left about maybe like 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch size, so not very big. You don't need that much seam allowance. Oh, my fabric does have a very evident right side and wrong side, so of course just make sure that you flip the pattern to create that second collar that's going to go underneath, because you want the right sides to be facing out. And then since my blouse had the ruffles already, I'm just cutting along the fabric to detach the ruffles, although still leaving the sewn line. That way the ruffles don't come undone. So here is 3 of the ruffled lines. This is all I ended up needing. I just left behind the 4th one because I kind of tore it anyway, so that worked out. So now for gluing, the first step is, since my collars are in pieces, I am attaching the collars together at the center back, of course right sides together. Do that for both the top collar and the bottom collar. And then I just want one long piece of ruffled fabric, so I'm gluing all 3 of those pieces together at the ends, again right sides together, to create one long strip. Once the glue is all dry, we're going to move on to attaching the ruffles to the collar edge. So the ruffles are going to go, of course, right sides together along the outside edge of the collar. So when you lay them down, all of the ruffles should be pointing towards the inside. Normally, whenever you would sew, you would just sandwich the ruffles in between both of the collar pieces, so the top and the bottom collar. But since I'm using the glue instead, I thought it would be just a little bit easier to manage if I glued it to one side first and then glued the second piece on top. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm actually lining up the very edge of the collar right up against that sewn line of the gathers. That way I knew all of the raw edges would be covered and you wouldn't see that stitching. And it made sure that I was gluing them on straight. So use that as a guide, work bit by bit and lightly press down on top to make sure that the 2 pieces adhere together. And this is what it should look like whenever you're all the way around, and then just let that dry fully before you move on to the next step. So now, like I said, I'm gonna put that bottom collar and just literally glue it right on top along the edge. Before we do that though, we do need to include those little ties that we're gonna sandwich in between as well. So here's that little hem that I cut off. If you don't have something like this, literally you can just make a little tube, sew it or glue it down, and then, you know, flip it inside out. Or if you just want to make it super easy, just use a little bit of ribbon or something. So these are going to be glued on either side of the front. Just make sure that you leave that little bit of seam allowance up at the top, right at the neck hole. That way the tie doesn't get glued into that seam. And then literally all you would do is just attach that bottom collar, glue all the way around the edge, but make sure that you leave a little bit of a gap at the neck hole, because that's where we're gonna flip this inside out. You can see that I even glued partly around the neckline, but then made sure to leave that gap. I think I left about a hand's width amount, and that was plenty to get this thing flipped out. So once you flip it inside out, make sure all of the edges get pushed out flat, as well as all of the corners. And then the only thing you have left to do is just close up that last little gap. Just fold the raw edges under and then use your glue to seal it shut. Okay, wait. This is actually really cute. I feel like that turned out really well. It's basically just like a giant bib, but will fit all of your cottagecore needs. It obviously does have a few flaws just because it is glued rather than sewn, but honestly, good to know you can actually just glue it and you don't have to sew. Like if you're not a sewer, there's the back. So I've got the little like bow here, the strings, it's what ties it all down. I think the Ganni ones are probably like even bigger than this, but I don't know, I kind of like this size. If I were to do it again, I would definitely sew it just because I feel like I have a lot more control and it's a lot cleaner. You can get cleaner edges if you do that. So just note that. And then I would actually make the neck hole larger as well. This one is like right up against my neck, which is fine because then you won't see like a high neck or whatever underneath, but it's almost a little bit too close. Like I kind of wish it would give me a little bit of breathing room. Like let's try it with some other tops though, with a cute little colorful sweater. A bit more casual with a graphic tee, which if you have a high neckline you can also tuck in the bow. Literally any type of blouse. I think this animal print one is kind of funky and cool and it's really cute with the dress. Alright you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was inspiring that you make one yourself. If you do make one, please tag me. I would love to see your recreations. You can actually use the hashtag #BeRecreative. That way I can see your post on Instagram and share it. I think I'm gonna try to do some other kind of like designer dupe type of videos. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you'd be interested in. Maybe I can make a little series out of it. But yeah, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and follow me on Instagram. I'd love to connect with you guys over there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!